220 knots is awfully hot.
Yeah. How I roll.
Well, sometimes
it's going to be a long roll.
You flip is all.
Rearming complete.
Well, you touched a little short there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says he landed.
Don't be this guy. This video will show you the basics of landing the right way. We will cover how to prepare the aircraft for landing, how to line up your approach, and how to touch down. Since this is a video for beginners, don't worry about issues like crosswinds, instrument approaches, battle damage, or air traffic control. This is intended to show you the most straightforward way to get your plane back on the ground quickly and safely. First, some instrumentation. In the center of the heads-up display, or HUD, we have the Total Velocity Vector, or TVV pipper. The TVV will show you exactly where you're heading. If you keep flying a steady path, eventually you'll arrive wherever the TVV is pointing. We'll mostly want to keep it pointed toward the runway. A little to the right, we have the flight path angle indicator, underneath the altimeter, which shows numerically how far up or down the TVV is relative to the horizon line on the pitsider. The next thing you need to be aware of is the angle of attack indexer. These three lights will show you when your airspeed is the best speed to land at. Down here are the landing gear and flaps indicators. When all three landing gear lights show green and the flaps indicator shows fully down, your plane is prepared for landing. Now it's time to actually start our approach. The first thing to do is point the nose of the aircraft somewhere off the end of our intended runway, so that when we turn toward the runway we'll have plenty of room to align ourselves properly before we reach it. Next, we need to adjust our altitude so we can get on the proper descent path without needing any radical last-minute maneuvers. For most airfields in DCS, 2,000 to 3,000 feet is a good altitude for entering the approach pattern. This dive to lose altitude is making us gain a lot of airspeed. We'll need to extend the speed brakes and get rid of that airspeed, or we'll be going too fast to extend the landing gear and flaps. Now that we're below 180 knots, it's a good time to lower the flaps and landing gear to prepare the plane for landing. If you're going too fast, even when you set the flaps to a lowered position, they'll stay up. And if you're going too slowly, the red light on the landing gear handle will light up and the warning sound will start in order to remind you to lower them. This might also be a good time to turn on the landing lights and navigation lights if you haven't already. Now that the flaps are down, there's a lot more drag on the wings, so we'll lose airspeed a lot faster even with the speed brakes closed. Be sure to work the throttle to maintain your velocity. There's also a lot more lift from the wings. See how the TVV suddenly moved upward even though the nose didn't come up? This has the overall effect of lowering our stall speed, meaning that we can fly a lot more slowly without losing control, and we'll land more gently too. But we'll need to keep the throttle up a little higher in order to maintain our airspeed. Looking out the canopy, it's about time to turn toward the runway. Now that we're facing the runway, we need to line up with it. The runway should be straight up and down in the HUD. Since it isn't, we can see that we are to the right of the runway and must move the TVV to the left until the runway is centered. Ideally, the TVV pipper should align with the runway threshold at 3 degrees down slope, as shown by the pitch ladder and the angle indicator. Since the runway threshold is closer to 5 degrees, we need to move the TVV even lower until the runway is in the correct position. Once everything is correct, we can align the TVV with the runway, confident that we'll land on it properly. Finally, we need to adjust our speed. The angle of attack indexer has 3 lights. The bottom one means we're too fast, the top one means we're too slow, and the middle is a blue donut for when we're at the right speed for landing. Note that the right speed might change depending on things like weapon stores, fuel quantity, and battle damage, so don't look at the airspeed indicator and figure that 120 knots is the magic number.
Altitude, altitude.
Once we've got the runway straight up and down in the HUD, the TVV aligned with both the runway threshold and the -3 line on the pitch ladder, and the center blue donut showing on the AOA indexer, we're all set to land. Now we just ride this path the rest of the way in. Just before touchdown, we'll pull the nose slightly to flare and make things as gentle as possible. Then we extend the speed brakes, cut the engines, and gently brake to a controllable taxi speed. That's all there is to it. Now we all know how to land. Good luck out there, and good hunting.